I promise you I could safely train that overweight person with strength training a lot better than what running will do to their body.
What does your routine look like?
The best fitness program is the one that gets you out of bed 5 days a week, right?
And I would love to know what you think about the rise of hybrid sports, etc.
I've done all the competing and all the chasing, and now I just want to stay in motion. There's worse things to have than a workout habit. You know what I mean?
We have former professional athlete and the founder of MADabolic, a great store of spaces where people can practice fitness and get in shape in a totally different way than what we are normally used to, and bringing in a lot of experience from being in the trenches with other professional athletes. Brandon Cullen, thank you so much for hopping on the show.
Yeah, and thanks so much for having me.
I'm so excited to dive into basically blending all things from the fitness side, sports side, all the way to entrepreneurial and technology, because these are all the topics that are very close to my heart. And it seems like you have managed to blend them all into a very powerful business. So where did this start? What was planting the seed, basically?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to blend them all. I guess I'll start with there, right?
It's a process for sure.
Yeah, especially with how fast technology is moving now, and considering where it's important and where it's not. You know, I'll start there where I believe fitness is a hospitality business, especially boutique fitness, the kind of the sandbox we play in. And I think technology can help, but I also think leaning on it too much can take away from that kind of human experience that, you know, we provide. We like to look at it as using, you know, making it easier and removing friction for the consumer, but we still want that one-on-one human connection, right? So yeah, like you said, it's a blending it all together is a work in progress. And I don't think that's a metabolic thing. I think that's kind of what everyone's trying to figure out in their own field right now. But yeah, to go how this started, I mean, the short version of it was I was lucky enough at one point in my life to be gifted enough to try professional sports at a pretty high level. And that's where I met my co-founder on one of the last teams we played together. And
what was your sport of choice?
It was hockey. So I know it's, you know, I'm a Canadian kid or I guess adult. I was a Canadian kid, and that was pretty natural. So, and
you know, we Czechs are all about ice hockey. So we share something in common.
And some of the best players in the world come from your country, which, you know, got to play with a lot of great people from all over the world too, at the professional level. But yeah, me and my co-founder, we ended up on the same team our last year playing the game. I was trying to make it back from a very bad concussion and never got medically cleared to play again. And he knew he was retiring. And kind of the short version of the story was we both overachieved based on fitness. And what I mean by that is, like, we were just average players, but fitness gave us that edge, the one thing we could control. So the more serious we could take our off ice, the better we could be on ice. And we kind of became best friends based on that shared passion, the way we kind of approached the game. So when the careers were over, we looked at one another and said, you know, maybe we can do this fitness thing as a career. And we just noticed a big gap in the marketplace. And the way I would describe it is you had some very like high level training for high caliber athletes. and then you kind of had some very, very average or below average training for your general population. And we kind of wanted to create something that landed in the middle that was high quality training for everyday people that were past their sport. And that kind of fell into this age bracket of 25 to 50 is where we thought that niche existed. And we've been fine tuning that thing for a decade plus now. And yeah, it's been really cool to see it come together. And it's also the caliber of person I get to hang out with on a daily basis is a very exciting group of people to be around.
Well, I think that for me, this line of business attracts people that are extremely like-minded, right? And because these are people that want to keep themselves fit, they want to be healthy to some extent. So naturally, I think that this creates great bonds. What I wanted to bring in is a little bit of an interesting perspective that I feel like you are the best person to discuss it with, because we all source inspiration in when it comes to fitness and sports from professional athletes, but not everyone can train like one. And oftentimes we look at these programs that are designed, right, for people that are at the highest level of the sport. And like it takes a lot of time and effort to get there. And it's very appealing, right? It's great to study like different kinds of training regimens, etc. And me personally, I have a bit of an ambition to get as close to being a professional athlete as possible. But I do dedicate between 15 to 20 hours a week to just working out, which I think is like, it's an extreme, right? For someone
I was going to say.
for someone who has a job or runs a business, to be able to dedicate that amount of time takes a lot from doing other things. And I think that people usually spend way less. And in the end, I think there's many clinical studies that in order to keep yourself fit, right, it's like you start with probably 3 workouts a week, roughly, and that's where you yield the biggest difference between living a sedentary lifestyle versus being very active. But for me, like what I learned the hard way is that it's a lot more about consistency rather than like this magic miracle formula that creates the biggest difference. And I have heard you talking towards that in some of your previous podcasts and appearances, that basically even if you end up doing few lifts or few movements and you stick with the basic 3 times 10 reps or 4 times 10 reps, and you increase the weight when you feel like it, you stick with the same weight if you don't feel like it. This is kind of the very baseline that most of the people would benefit from. And so I would love to see whether your perspective on that is the same, if I understand your point of view correctly, or how did you come up with that learning?
Well, I think I like to say that the best fitness program is the one that gets you out of bed 5 days a week, right? So I think there can be a good, better, best of kind of anything that we do. And obviously I'm going to come from the lens of, I think the base of everyone's fitness pyramid should be strength. And then you kind of branch out from there. And I realize that's a biased statement, but that would be my best. But if I have a friend a family member or a client that hiking 5 days a week, 60 minutes a day is the thing that, they can get passionate about. It's the thing that keeps them moving, keeps them consistent. Even though I might believe what we do is superior to a hike 5 days a week, if you're not doing what we're doing, I think hiking is the move for yourself. So yeah, you're right. Consistency is the most important thing, especially today, because we just don't move as much as we used to. Whether we are stuck behind screens like we are today, we're just not moving as much as we used to, specifically in North America. I'm grew up in Canada, and now am an American citizen. Love both countries, but kind of the same things are hit in both those countries, and it's more of a sedentary life, different than what we do see in Europe from time to time, where people are moving around a lot more just as part of their daily activities. So consistency, like you said, is important. I wish 3 days a week was kind of enough, but it really kind of isn't. You got to zero in on moving 60 minutes a day, 5 days a week, I think, to really create some lasting changes, because a lot of that has to do with just the consistency and kind of falling in love with the habit of working out and the habit of movement, right? Once we develop that 60 minutes a day, 5 days a week, I think then we can start looking at best ways to optimize yourself based on what you love and what you want to do. But I think developing a workout habit is kind of the most important thing. And we don't have to go as far as you, 20 hours a week, you overachiever there. But, if we just help people fall in love with the routine of movement, then I think you can approach, well, what is the best way to do this? But routine is kind of where it starts.
I do have a very specific reason for why my training regimen is set up this way. And if you are interested, I'm happy to tell you why. Because I use it as a proxy for the business. Of course, STRV and building software is my primary point of focus. And basically having high ambition in the sport helps me to make the right decisions on the business front. So I have the time and mental capacity to go and dedicate 15 to 20 hours a week to training and working out. So it actually yields two things for me. One, it allows me to push myself to make the right decisions, to set up the right strategy, to get the right people in the right positions. And then it really allows me to go after my, I would say, sport ambitions and desires. I picked High Rocks as my sport of choice a year and a half ago now. So it's been quite fresh, and I would love to know what you think about the rise of hybrid sports, etc. But I use it as a proxy that basically allows me to push myself to be efficient in different things. And I think that this is how the people that are able to operate many companies at the same time, as we see with some of the tech giants, they use this as a proxy to be able to do their next thing, right? They first have to make sure that they set up the primary thing properly, so they can dedicate their time elsewhere. And it cannot be really just the amount of time that you put in, right? You have to also think about how to organize things strategically.
Sure. Yeah. So 2 points. High Rocks, I love what they're doing. We were actually very close to doing a kind of joint to do something together is the way I would say it. And we started talking long before they got to the United States. They had developed a huge presence in Europe and were expanding into the States. And funny enough, a good old friend of mine ended up being one of the people in charge for the growth in the US market, specifically the New York market. And he reached out. And what I really liked about the way we ended it, meaning not deciding to go forward, I don't think either of us needed one another. And I think both of us would have had to compromise for the partnership to come together. And I think the open dialogue was nice between the two of us, where we could just wish each other the best and not go our separate ways, but run parallel with one another, where we'll have people that attend Metabolic that do High Rocks races. We just didn't see the value of being an affiliate.
Yeah.
But I love what they're doing. I honestly, everyone keeps asking me about it, and I think it's going to be huge. And it's kind of funny, right? Because selfishly, as I watch the rise of it, I'm like, what did I make a mistake not trying to be involved with this growth? But at the same time, too, right? Our product was developed for people past a sport. And our entire goal is to have somebody train from 25 to 55 and never have to compete, never have to endure the risks of competition. Even some races you train for, right? You have to compromise your fitness to do well at that specific race. If you think of like a marathon runner, right? If you're going to hurt your fitness training to become a marathon runner. So like once we were able to remove that idea of, this is a sport, we love what you're doing, but this is a program for life, and we could just kind of have that open conversation, it was good. But I love what they're doing. I think they're going to do extremely well. At some point, there will be a ceiling to how big it can get. But honestly, I think the next 5 years is going to be fun to watch what happens with High Rocks. And then, to your point of, I think what you were kind of trying to say, if I heard you correctly, is, having this commitment to fitness kind of helps you laser in on priorities. Being able to, So it kind of gives you that commitment of what is important to me. And, the one thing I'll always say, I could make an argument that maybe you're overtraining this and that. But the thing I always tell people is there's worse things to have than a workout habit. You know what I mean? Like, okay, so you're training 3 hours a day or watching Netflix 3 hours a day. I'd rather have that addiction of your training addiction, right? We can all get a little bit elitist on how you train, how you should train and all this stuff, but having a workout habit's not that big a problem,
Yeah, I would say so. Sometimes it's a little bit of an extreme, but I feel like, and like you were right when you were mentioning that you have to do some compromises, right? If you train for one thing, it's like gonna take away from other things, etc. And I just like the pursuit of it.
And by the way, not to cut you off, that's good. That's okay. Like knowing that I want to become a power lifter in this season of my life, well, your cardiovascular will take a little bit of a hit. But now I'm done with that. I'd like to try adventure racing. Well, my overall strength may take a hit. But I believe like these natural cycles through life every 1 to 3 years is extremely healthy than just being like, to your point, like having something to chase or something to prioritize, I think that's extremely healthy, and that can change. That's fine. That can change from time to time.
And just to go back and reflect a little bit on my earlier fitness journey, I have done quite a bit of CrossFit. Big fan of Barry's boot camp. I love to try all sorts of different workouts. Was really into running at one point, but it comes in waves, right? And it's not like I used to deadlift crazy weights, and like it as long as as you keep changing things, your body transforms, and it's kind of nice to see how powerful it is to remain consistent and go after one thing. But I think it's very difficult sometimes to figure out what that one thing is. But if you do a little bit of everything, it's very hard to get any better. But yeah, I like your philosophy that it's not about competing. It's not about making big fitness impact, but mostly like let's fix the foundation, which I think is kind of what you are trying to achieve.
Yeah, and even like when I think of myself, I had a lot of like really big injuries in my hockey career, whether it be knees or shoulders, right? So the funny thing is like my entire regiment today is to never be hurt again. Like I've competed, I kicked the shit out of myself, my body's broken. Now I want to make sure that whatever workout I do today doesn't hurt me so bad tomorrow that I can't work out again. Do you know what I mean? Like, so this season 100%. Of life, I just want to be able to move and lift, 4 to 5 days a week and never hurt myself again. It's weird, right? Because I've done all the competing and all the chasing, and now I just want to stay in motion and feel strong.
And it really comes down to programming, and I think that's why professional athletes get injured quite often, right? Because in order to become the best, well, what else than pushing it to the very limit can you do, right? You have to navigate that risky territory of being potentially injured, because that's where the competition happens, right? If you go and stay on like a level below, you are likely not gonna have the strength, the stamina, the endurance as the other athletes that put all of it out do. At the same time, for life, this is not the most practical thing, as you mentioned.
Yeah, and the funny thing about athletes, right? Training in the last 10 years has gotten more intelligent than probably the past 100 years, right? But the thing about sports is the athletes just getting faster, stronger, and more explosive, and we're still the same humans. So like injuries aren't going anywhere, right? But I do think, like, even when I evaluate the way collegiate programs are or professional programs, they are training a lot smarter, where they're not like beating their athletes into the ground, kind of like the 2 and 3 a days and no water breaks and go till you puke kind of thing. Like, they are training athletes a lot smarter today. But like anything, sports all carry a risk. CrossFit carried risk. Hockey, my sport, carried risk. I'm a big MMA fan. I mean,
huge MMA fan here too.
Yeah, like half of those guys getting through training camp is harder than the fight itself, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But that's the main thing, right? Like our program and our company's commitment is to the everyday athlete past their sport. and we'd really like to hold on to them for 30 years. And I know that sounds like a big thing, but like if I caught a person at 25 years old, I really believe our program can train him into his mid 50s or her mid 50s safely. You know, like I really do. If you do strength training specific to the individual, and like program it correctly versus throwing it into an event, I can make an argument that structured strength training is a lot safer than running, to be honest, right? Like running's a skill, and a lot of people don't think that running is a skill, but you know, an overweight person that starts running, I promise you I could safely train that overweight person with strength training a lot better than what running will do to their body. It just is what it is. It's just physics.
Yeah. Would you just mind describing some of the pillars of your programming and how you go about setting up the metabolic workouts?
Yeah, so we have 3 different themes or energy systems that we design all of the workouts around. So we use our term Metabolic, or our name Metabolic. The MAD is kind of like how we structure our intervals. So M stands for momentum. And those are, I'm going to try to dumb this down so we don't get too exercise sciencey, but it's going to focus on
we
like
can get sciencey, I don't mind.
Yeah. Okay. So it's like athleticism and endurance is the goal. The interval is going to start at about a 70% pace, and we're going to build over the course of the workout to 90%. And that's going to be kind of the energy that the athlete brings, the weight that we add as the workout's building on itself, and just kind of the intensity we bring to the workout. So you'll see a lot of like single-sided power-based movements, a lot of foot speed, jumping and landing correctly, and percentage-based sprinting on our cardiovascular machines. So that's kind of like our momentum intervals, and we have every theme has 6 specific intervals in them. So then we move on to anaerobic, which is, there are brutal ones, 100%, but it's still a 1-to-1 work to rest ratio. So we allow that athlete to rest, so when it's time to go, you can go. The movements are very straight up and down and straightforward. Similar movement patterns to kind of CrossFit without the barbell. So think of like heavy presses, heavy deadlifts, heavy squats, heavy swings, chased by real intense kind of cardiovascular efforts. And then our final one, durability, which is super unique, especially in our field. They're like slow grinding efforts. So think maintaining an 80% pace, anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes at one movement. And you're looking at a lot of like unilateral stuff, a lot of stability. So think of things like lunges, step ups, heavy carries, from a body weight thing, like different planking and bear crawl patterns, and just holding a sustained pace. So to get sciencey, when you build this into a weekly program, you're teaching your clients to drive in different gears, which we know is a good thing. Every day can't be game day. You cannot sprint every day without one day hitting a wall. So we kind of educate our clients to train with us 4 days a week to get all 3 disciplines plus one additional one. And as that kind of rolls over itself over the course of a year, you have a very balanced athlete and training program that, can go hard and fast or can last a very long time. And everything is driven with strength at the base of our pyramid. And then we sprinkle in athleticism and cardio on top of those strength bias movements.
Do you utilize any piece of technology to help people keep track of how they are doing? Or how do you look at leveraging the tech with basically your program regimen?
Weirdly, we don't. And strategically, we don't, because we almost look at ourselves as the safe haven away from technology. So people act like we don't allow cell phones on your floor. Like, you come in and it's time to train, and this is an hour with us. And it's strategic, right? Because a lot of people we're competing with, they're trying to leverage metrics on a screen, or worse, their trainers are on a screen. We are known for in-your-face, one-on-one attention to detail and keeping people accountable and making them 1% better every day as human beings, versus like leveraging technology on the floor. That being said, we'll use technology to help the lead nurturing process. So when we get a prospect and we want to communicate with them prior to getting into their first class, we want to know about them. We want to know if there's history of injuries, what they've been doing for fitness up to date, what they like doing, what they are looking to accomplish. So we try to remove that kind of friction and awkwardness in the lobby and get to know them prior to them coming in. And then that allows us to train them better based on, their journey and their story until they got to us. But yeah, we're pretty anti-technology at this point, because everyone else is trying to go all in technology. So it's both makes sense for our product, but it's also both strategic to just this world we live in.
Like, as we chat, I have a feeling that you are not the hype kind of guy that would just decide to change a direction because something looks fancy and shiny, but you have a very strong vision and you are in it for the long run after all.
Yeah, and honestly, that hard-headedness, maybe at times could stunt this perceived growth. Like, maybe we could chase something bigger, but I also know the bad side of that. If we lose our DNA and our core values trying to get too big, I know it's not going to work. I have a vision for the way this started, and my business partner's right there with me. We're a two for two combo. And we kind of have an idea of how, we want this business to end. And it's not chasing a new shiny object by any means. If anything, it's just recommitting and doubling down on what you're great at and speaking to the consumer that really works for you. There's a lot of options for people out there. And we, I think we're a great option, but we're not the only option. So if our tone and our style of training is not for you, there's plenty of options. But, we also speak to that high achiever and design everything to try to make their experience with us great. And, I do not see that going away. Not when I'm around anyways.
What would you say were some of the biggest obstacles that you had to overcome, basically transitioning your life from being a professional athlete to running this kind of fitness business and running and operating it now for more than a decade?
Yeah, we were inexperienced with everything in business, right? And a lot of times people will look at our company today and they're impressed with where we are, but there's years of mistakes and failures that get you to where you are today. I think the one thing that really helped me and my partner is, we weren't the best at our sport and had to kind of work for everything. And we got used to failing and getting cut pretty often. And you have to figure out how to pick yourself back up. So like, I'm not really a guy that lives in the past or dwells on the past. Like, I barely remember what happened yesterday because I'm trying to figure out what we can crush today. And I think the one thing we've been good at, me and my partner, is if we aren't good at something, we'd be willing to hire or pay for someone that can be an expert in something. The other thing for me personally is I don't think, some athletes identify as that person they were in their sport, like they were a hockey player or they were an MMA fighter. Like, the way I look at it is I was a competitive kid that grew up in Canada, and that's how I started playing hockey.
That was the destiny, pretty much.
So when my career ended, it was like, I just need to find a place to put my
where
competitive...
you can be competitive again.
Yeah. And that became business. And then you get obsessive like you do with anything, and you try to see how far you can take things and how smart you can get and how many great people can be around you, and you figure shit out on the fly. That's just how it is.
And you mentioned that there was a lot of learning on the job of course, a lot of mistakes. What would you say were the biggest lessons learned that you recall from the top of your mind?
This will be very this is specific to me, so I'm not even speaking to my partner. But, when I was growing up, I always found myself in a leadership position. So whether I was captain of a team, I was always viewed as a leader throughout sports. And then I kind of took that same identity into business, but business is a lot different because in sports you can kind of lead by example. And I find there's a clear division between being a leader and being a good manager of people. And that was one of the first things I realized I'm still not good at, right? I'm not a great manager of people because I'm very, I almost hate to admit it, but I'm very black and white. Like, I want things done a specific way. And, a lot of times
I know that.
yeah. So a lot of times, people come from different backgrounds, different families, different sets of core values. Learning that, not everybody thinks like Brandon was a hard lesson early on, but just knowing that, okay, I probably shouldn't be the manager of people type person, stay in that leadership role, stay in that visionary role, create the culture that you want people to follow, but then have someone with more of just a natural, empathetic personality in that manager of people role. So that was a huge, still learning it. So it's a work in progress.
I have to say that this is a topic that I can relate to very much because I have a feeling that leadership was always an area that I thrive in throughout my life. But you are right that leadership and people management are two different things. Because one thing is to be setting up vision, strategy, culture, etc. And the other thing is because people management also is a lot about giving it the time, following the right procedures and processes. And I feel like these two things usually don't go that well together, that if someone is a visionary and wants to move fast, is not going to be taking time to follow this process to make sure that the people on the team feel heard, valued, and get the support they need.
Yep.
So it's partially, I think, a seniority thing where, as you progress throughout building an organization, at least that's my experience, you have less patience to work with the people that are less experienced, because like you expect them to know a lot of things, and you have to put the effort into working with someone who is a bit more junior, which is okay, but also that your time is better spent elsewhere. So I think that we share a very common perspective on that.
Yeah, and the other part of it I would be, very sensitive to is when you think of like team sports, you are collectively working to a common goal. And you actually may even like within your sport take on a lesser role because it's right for the organization to get to that championship. So my biggest rub is when you're in a team atmosphere in business and people aren't fighting for the exact same goals, or people are stepping out of line and not following the vision, that will bring out the wrong side of my personality. More so than them not being, because I think to a degree, I agree with you, you can get frustrated with someone that doesn't have the experience. But you can also kind of, depending on where you are in your business, potentially fix that in the hiring process. But if we're going left and a teammate's going right, that's not going to end well with me at all.
That's a trouble.
Yeah.
That's a trouble right there.
Yeah.
Well, you have touched it a little bit that you have a certain vision for Metabolic, how you would like this story to end. And maybe this is not the right format to be revealing the desires and expectations fully, which I totally respect. But what's in it for you next? Where would you like to take it?
So we have 4 primary partners, me and my co-founder and 2 other partners that are in on this. So I bet you everyone would give their own answer kind of thing. Our private equity partners are going to want to chase a certain level of growth that makes sense for their style of business, right? And then me and my co-founder Kirk, we've always, and this is going to sound arrogant, right? But like, I care less about how many we can open and more about if we're in your neighborhood, we're considered the best. And I know there's a lot of ego behind that, but like when we started this concept, a lot of people think about fitness, they start concepts to help people, and they have that kind of servant mindset. We started this to be the best and now serve a lot of people because I think we're really good at what we do. And that's a nice byproduct of that. So for me, having 75 to 100 amazing units throughout the United States I'd be completely fine with that. And like, we're not trying to be Orange Theory, who has 1,000 units. We're not trying to be F45 that has 300 or kind of 2,000 worldwide. If we opened 100 units in the United States and 80% of those were considered top notch, completely great with that story. Completely great with it.
I feel like having 100 locations in the fitness space is a very big achievement. I'm not sure how many, I would say, fitness concepts there are total across the United States that have 100 plus locations, but I don't think that it's that many after all.
No, and we're at 42 as of this recording today, and we probably will have 50 open by the end of this year. So we're halfway there. And the majority of them do extremely well. So like in franchising, if you kind of have 20% who overachieve, 20% who underachieve, and then you're just like 60 in the middle do well. And we're pretty close to that fraction right now. If we can maintain that as we grow, where, 80% are doing well and 20% are extremely doing well, that's a real healthy franchise system. Business is business. You're always going to have some locations that are underperforming or struggling, and you try to help them. But there's a fallacy in franchising where franchisors, like people in my seat, say that, they have this system that never fails. It's a turnkey, it's a fallacy. Like, this is business. Like, some people do extremely well and some don't. And that's, so franchising it gives you a better game plan and roadmap to succeed. But there's a human element to this, and there's no such thing as a turnkey human being that you can just plug them in and they just run a business perfectly, right? You give them systems, but then a lot of it kind of falls back on them implementing those systems. But yeah, and honestly, 100 would be, we do this to 75, and they're fantastic. I want to be proud of what we do by the end of it, more so than getting as huge as we can be.
Yeah, I think that this kind of approach is frankly quite rare these days. Might be considered being a little old school, because I think that there is a big push for numbers in I think it's hard, right, when there is money at play, especially outside money at play. Well, the money at play are expected to make more money, and you make more money by multiplying.
Yeah.
But the old school approach, that we could call it, is that you are building a legacy, you are building a brand. You have certain expectation, right? And I heard the word culture from you multiple times, and I feel like that might be also something that you see important when it comes to building the business, and it's certainly part of it. And I think that you are still among some of the top, I would say, operators in influential leaders in the fitness space, right? It's not that you have a smaller ambition than some of the big guys. You are already like in the very high segment of the industry. It's just like, you are probably not pushing for, just the numbers, but also looking at other things.
Yeah, and you got to be cautious too, right? Because who we are designing everything for, there's less of those people than out of shape people looking for an inclusive space to feel safe. Like, there's way more of that type of consumer, right? So we have to be aware of, if we're chasing, let's say the fitness industry in the States, like 25% of people even become a gym, and then we're chasing 20% of the 25. Like, you got to say that out loud and understand that there's less of them than them, and not a right or wrong, but you should be able to say out loud who is your core consumer and what could our ceiling be based on the industry, right?
Yeah.
Like, give you an example. let me think of a company that's doing really well and I respect what. Here's a good example. So, you know, Burn Boot Camp. You ever heard of them?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So I used this in a recent lecture that I was doing, and their mission statement is to ignite global wellness by empowering women and their families, right? And I made a joke in this thing like, so when I'm driving to a gym, not to be rude, but that's not something that gets me amped up to, go train at Burn Boot Camp. But I love what they're doing, because think of how many 40-year-old women in the United States that are trying to reclaim their youth that they do extremely well with. I would argue there's probably more of them than there is high-performing 25 to 50-year-old people past their sport looking to remain super athletic. Like our two different things. Like our ceilings are in two different places. We're trying. We have now. Still, I can promise you this: if we do 100 locations, well, I'm happy. Everyone's happy. My whole team's happy. My partners are happy. Our families are happy. Like that doesn't have to be 300-400 locations. And I think just being like honest with who you're chasing and what that potential reach looks like, it can make you disciplined in how you grow. It should make you disciplined in how you grow. And, sometimes you chance things, they work out. Sometimes you chance things, they don't work out. But sometimes you also have to chance, well, what could this do? Could this reach a little bit of a different demographic? So it's all, I love this stuff. Like I
think
fun.
that you just gave a great insight into how important the positioning of the brand is, right? Because every single brand in fitness is trying to address a need a little differently, a little or more differently, right? But you have to know what you're going after, and I would love to hear from you. How do you decide in terms of locations where you would like to establish your presence? What gives you the insights that that area might be a good fit for you, and where is your most successful or flagship location?
Yeah, so here's where we do use technology. So we will use membership data. We filter it through it's a software that looks at psychographics versus demographics. And the one that we're specifically involved in, we have access to a couple, but the one we've been using for years is through Buxton. And they have been tracking our credit card purchasing behavior for 30 plus years. And to sum it up, there's about 70 archetypes or type of people in the United States, and our membership fits these 5 perfect, about 80% of our membership. Well, with that data, we can kind of like heat map cities and see pockets of the cities where these people are living, working, and playing. And that gives us a chance to start looking at real estate in those pockets. But it's not a science, right? Because sometimes there's a neighborhood that is transitioning that's maybe a year out, and that's good real estate. Here's another thing too, is a bad operator can kill a great market. So we have a few markets where the maps say you should not go there because there's not a lot of your consumers there. But we have a rock star person that is grown up in this neighborhood and knows the whole city, and they make it work. Right. And then you have some of these maps that it's like, oh my God, this city has so much opportunity. And you put someone in there and they're not a good operator. Well, it's not going to work. So I would say the best markets for us are like tier 2 cities. So like I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. We have a good presence in DC, good presence in Austin, Texas. So a lot of those like 18-hour cities, Denver, Nashville, those fun young cities, we do well there. We haven't tested out like a true A+ market yet. Like we're close to a deal in Miami right now that I think would be super interesting. We're in Brooklyn, but we're not in Manhattan. We haven't done anything in LA yet. So like, I don't know how that will shake out yet. A lot of it becomes a numbers game, what commercial real estate costs and what you can charge for memberships. I think we could service the consumer, no problem. But, you know, getting in the right space is a lot of just math, to be honest. Can we break even by this number? What does that real estate look like? What can we charge? And can we get to this number here? But yeah, our flagship location is in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I live here. And yeah, right, tier 2 cities are a sweet spot.
That's the one that I'm visiting then.
Nice. Nice.
Well, you throughout the discussion, you mentioned that for you right now at your current stage of life, the most important thing is to train, but not to get injured. Are there any interesting aspects of your routine that you have incorporated into your life outside of working out? Because as I assume, from a professional sport, you go above and beyond with all the latest cutting edge technology and approaches to be at the peak performance. But how do you take that into your life today, and what does your routine look like?
You know, it's weird. You would think, based on my background, that I'm trying everything. And yeah, I do, like everything from cold therapy to, I've tried it all. But you know, the weirdest thing that I found, I'm 44 today. And I would say in the last 2 years, I've really stripped it down to getting back to the basics. And it's almost like what I did as a 16-year-old kid to get myself ready to be a 21-year-old athlete. I'm almost back to that place today where it's basic squatting, basic hinging, basic pressing, 8 hours of sleep, mix in a salad, drink some water, go for some walks. Like with so much stuff out there right now, it's almost like I'm stripping it down to the smallest things that have worked forever. Like, I hate to say this, but I'm not waking up and journaling. I don't have the fucking time for it. You know, it's hard enough to fit in 4 to 5 workouts a week, never mind a yoga session and a cold tub therapy on top of that. Like, I got a 9 and a 12-year-old. I'm at the baseball field six days a week. Like, so I've almost like compartmentalized everything to very basic things I can repeat in a 7-day schedule, if that makes sense.
Well, let me say something relatable. I am a big fan of Brian Johnson and him trying every single thing and investing millions of dollars to basically extend the life and health span.
Yeah.
But I've been to many of his talks and sessions and hikes, and in the end, what he ends up saying is, it's 3 things. You sleep enough, you eat well, you exercise, and this is the very core of what you do. I think important aspect is relationships and social bonding. but we try to do a lot of crazy experimental things, but in the end,
like you mean optimize everything, right?
yeah, and like after all, right? You realize that you are not sleeping enough, and it's ruining everything, right?
Yep.
So if these basics cover 80 to 90% of it, right? Why to bother with this specific supplement if that supplement only affects you by point something percent, right? It's like what's the point? So I still get very much excited about trying a lot of things, and
me too.
I have a big storage of different kinds of gadgets at home that I acquired. I have to say that I have so many of them that I play like a game that I say, okay, I would like to at least do like one, I would say, recovery or relaxing activity a day. And I can pick out of 50 that, I can go to a sauna, I can step on a spike mat, I can do hyperice or things like that. And like there is just so many things, and you definitely cannot do all of them or many of them every day, right? So I try to make it simple. Let's do at least one or something. It could be as easy as spending 10 minutes a day stretching. That's it.
Well, so one thing I have committed to, it's not really, this would be more, I think, for my own mental health, more so than physical health. I've been actively condensing the type of information I get. So like unsubscribing from a lot of emails, unfollowing things on Instagram or social media, even like LinkedIn requests. Like if I don't know you on a personal level, like I'm not looking to see if we can connect, just some random connection. So I went as far as, you're going to laugh at this, and my partners laughed at this. I went as far as ordered the New York Times paper copy on Fridays and Sundays now. So I don't read the news on my computer, because what I'm trying to do is, to your point, get in more like, relationship driven conversations and be in person more, and I'm trying to avoid being on a computer all day and being a slave to our algorithms that really drive life. So I know it's not fitness, but I have this year taken an active approach to control the information I am taking in on a daily basis.
Well, you mentioning that we should be less on our computer, I think that's a good wrap to our discussion. That we should probably drive this to the finish line. I wanted to say that I can't wait to visit your location in Charlotte. I will definitely put it on my schedule. Very, very excited about that. We can catch up while I do so as well. And grab a bite or something. But I wish you the best of luck with this endeavor of going after the 3-digit number.
That's right.
I think that it's a very ambitious and great goal. And in the end, I think that you operate in a space that is very rewarding, because you see people getting in shape, going through transformations, and you see how it impacts their lives. So I don't think that you need a second validation, but if you ever do, you can come to me and I will always tell you that you are doing a great thing.
Well,
but
thank you.
I wanted to thank you so much for a wonderful discussion.
Well, thanks a lot, and good luck with chasing high rocks. Just make sure you don't kill yourself on the way there, right? So
I'll do my best. I'll keep you posted.
That's right. All right, man. Well, thank you for having me today.